Hi folks, it's Andy and welcome to Kendo RANT. I've got loads of questions for us, so I'm going to jump right into it right after I've told you to like, share, subscribe, all that sort of thing, but most importantly, go and shop at KendoStar.com because that's my website, that's what pays for this whole thing, and it's the best Kendo website in the world if you want the best quality equipment in the whole entire galaxy, alright? It's all stuff that I've either designed or created or selected specifically for the international Kendo community, so it's the best website for it, yeah? We don't believe me, go and check out our Trustpilot rating. We're the only one with 5 stars, all right? KendoStar.com. Right, let's get into this. Okay, so this first one, came to me actually by private message, and it says, please anomalize it if possible. So, yeah, this is coming as anonymous. Right. So, I'm going to have to kind of change some of the words that go through here, but it says, I attended a dojo in Japan, and my sensei seems to be very good in terms of teaching. We're a group of adult beginners, which basically means from 0 dan to 2nd or 3rd dan. There's one thing that bothers me though. Our sensei doesn't allow us to have practice with the other teachers in the dojo, and he doesn't allow us to attend any Shiais. Keiko with the other teacher happens every few months, so it's not that big a deal. But what do you think about the Shiai? I know you said that Shiai is a huge part of Kendo and fighting with your limits, but it seems that our senseis have a different opinion. The only thing we do close to Shiai is Jigeiko, but there's no scoring, of course, and we can't test ourselves. For your information, the sensei is 7th dan, and there's no way to discuss any matters with him. Should I change dojo when I feel it's time to start attending Shiai, or would you advise another way? Okay, so we did have a little bit of a back and forth by message about this as well, because I did want to get a bit more information about the situation. Basically, you are in Japan, you are in a group that is sort of people, it is a dojo. You started Kendo at this dojo with this teacher, and there's other people in your group that are, like you say, up to sort of 2nd or 3rd dan, other non-Japanese people. And they're sort of under the impression that you're not allowed to attend Shiai. It does sound very weird, but I don't know because I'm not there. I haven't seen it specifically. Now, one thing you did tell me is that you're getting ready to do your IQ, all right? So you're not quite past doing your gradings yet. So here's what I do, to be honest. I do think you do need to do Shiai at some point in your Kendo journey. My personal opinion, I'd carry on as you are, do your best, get yourself at least to Shodan, all right? Get yourself at least to Shodan. And once you've got Shodan, then you're going to be in a little bit of a better position to act on this. Now, the first thing I'd do is, once you've got your Shodan, is I'd talk to the sensei. I know that he's 7th dan. It doesn't mean that you can't talk to him. You don't have to be like, hey, mister, why aren't you letting me in the Shiai? You don't have to be like that. I'd just go to him and say, oh, sensei, is it possible for us to enter any Shiai? I'm quite interested I'd like to try and enter the Shiai. Is that possible? And if at that stage they say, nah, I don't think so. I don't really like the idea of you doing Shiai for whatever reason. Then you can decide what to do then, whether that's something you're happy with to continue, or if you wanted to change dojo at that stage, or even just attend other dojos, you could do that. I think that would be very difficult for you to do, though, before you get Shodan. I don't think you should start moving to other dojos and stuff until you've got Shodan at least, okay? And that can be very difficult in Japan, to be honest. And you're going to need to be able to speak some level of Japanese, which you need to really if you want to start entering Shiais and stuff anyway. So I'd make sure that you're able to do that. Now, like I say, I'm not saying that you should leave the dojo. I think you should speak to the sensei, and you never know. Maybe he or she's not entering you in the Shiai just because he doesn't think you're interested in it, or for whatever reason. Maybe it just hadn't occurred to them. Okay, so I think it's okay to ask them, but do wait until you've got Shodan first. All right, it's a little bit early right now to be going there, I think. Okay, right, next one. This is another one that came to me by private message. It says, question for Kendo RANT, and I'd like to remain anonymous. So my question is about Jigeiko. I started about 5 years ago, and in this time we never practiced Jigeiko. I'll eventually ask the teacher about the reason not to practice it, but I wanted to ask you what you think from your teacher point of view. May this be due to the age group of our club? It's quite wide from 20s to 60s, but maybe most of us are around late 30s to late 40s. There are other clubs in the city that are more competition orientated, but I'm not sure if there may be another reason. I keep reading it's so important to improve that I find it strange. Also, I visited other dojos, and when it was time for Jigeiko, I was really bad at it. That's all. Thanks for time. Okay, so yeah, of course. I mean, if you're not practicing Jigeiko in your normal dojo, and you suddenly get asked to do it, you can't expect to be really good at it. Okay, that's normal. So don't beat yourself up about that. First off, and it's totally normal. All right, in your regular kind of casual club, where people just come once a week, or less, and are of all different age ranges, not to really practice Jigeiko, because it's very, very hard practice, and it's very, very physically intensive, and it doesn't necessarily give everything that everybody wants from their sort of casual kendo practice. So and also, to be honest, the other thing from my point of view as a teacher, it's actually quite difficult to get students, how can I say this in the best way? To get students to a level where they're good enough to be able to perform Jigeiko. It's actually it's quite difficult. You have to be able to make strikes with Fumikomi, with Kikentai no Ichi, and have fast footwork. And to get a group of students that are able to not only do that, but then be able to apply that into a situation of Jigeiko and also receive it correctly. It's very hard, especially if people are only attending sort of once a week and then they're sort of forgetting about Kendo the rest of the time. So I think that's the issue you're facing. Now, the thing is, in Japan too, not a lot of adults practice Jigeiko because most people, once they're adults, they're sort of past that stage, to be honest, if they've done Kendo as kids. So there's a couple of things you can do, though. All right, there's a couple of things you can do. You can talk to your sensei, right? Don't go to him though and say necessarily, "Hey, I think we should all do Jigeiko." That's not really your place to say that. The best thing to do is to go to him and say, "Oh, sensei, next time we do Jigeiko and I have Jigeiko with you, do you think you could give me some time to receive Jigeiko for me, and then you can do Jigeiko with the sensei?" That's one thing you can do. You could maybe attend at some of the other clubs as well, so you can get used to doing the Jigeiko with the other clubs that do practice Jigeiko, for example. Or, maybe you could talk to some of the other younger people in the club or people that are more interested in doing that sort of very hard, intensive practice. Maybe there are other people that want to do Jigeiko too, and maybe you could talk to the sensei and say, "Hey, sensei, do you think we as a group could practice Jigeiko together at some point, or something like that?" I'm sure there's a way around this. But yeah, if you want to get, I don't know. I'm guessing from the way you've said most of us are around late 30s, late 40s. If you're sort of late 30s, sort of to late 40s, then yeah, Jigeiko is definitely something you're going to need to do, especially if you're like below 5th Dan. You're going to need to do it if you want to kind of really get the most out of your Kendo. Once you're past that, then there's other ways to achieve that as well. But it's quite tough. Right, next one. This one's off the YouTube comments. I'm starting into this, and some questions I can't find an answer to it. The question is, what's the difference between Shiai and Jigeiko? Do they mean the same, or are there some differences? Okay, this is good. Basically, Jigeiko is your practice in the club. It's like free sparring, for want of a better word. It's basically a chance for you to practice your techniques in a semi-realistic situation, in a competitive situation with a partner, and you get to, you essentially are free sparring. Nobody keeps score. It's a type of practice in order to increase your ability. Shiai is competition, where you go to an actual, well, you don't necessarily have to go to a tournament to do Shiai, but Shiai is any point where you have the points recorded, and you play in order to score points, and you try your best to win, more than anything, and you have the chance to test your ability, okay? So rather than training your ability, it's there to test your ability, okay? That's what it means. Right, next one. So these ones are from the Kendo Show Early Access group. If you haven't joined the group, there's a link in the description down below. You should be in the group by now. It's free to join. It's a great place to post your questions for the show. Of course, I answer them on here, but it's a fantastic community of Kendoka from all around the world of all different levels. So they all chip in as well. So you get a great conversation going. So yeah, go and get in the group. It's in the description down below. And even better, when I get the instructional videos out there, which there are some coming soon, I promise, okay? I know somebody said last week that they wanted more instructional content. I have got more instructional videos coming, I really do, and they go in there before they go anywhere else, so you get early access to the instructional videos that I do, okay? So, this first one from the group, it says, I'm not sure if this was asked before, can I be bad in Keiko, which means practice, but still good in Kendo overall? So, right. This is a difficult one. It depends how you define bad in Keiko. Bad in practice. How are you bad in your practice? Do you mean you're bad because you didn't make many successful strikes? Making successful strikes isn't actually the goal of practice of Keiko, all right? Of course, you should try to make successful strikes that are valid, fulfill the criteria of Yu Kodatotsu, that means valid strikes, have Kikentai no Ichi, unify the sword, body, and spirit. But the goal of Keiko, of practice, is not just to do that as much as you can. Okay, it's to push yourself, overcome your own limits, overcome your own ego, your desire to strike and desire not to be struck. These are actually the goals. So yeah, I don't think you can be bad in Keiko and good at Kendo overall, because I think that the metric you're using to measure what is bad is probably off, if you know what I mean. Okay, you can think that you're doing really good in your practice in Keiko, and actually overall at Kendo you're pretty bad. I've seen that actually a couple of times. Just because you're hitting somebody's bogu a lot, somebody's arm, you're hitting their bogu lots of times, you think, oh yeah, I'm really good, I'm really strong. But actually, you're totally missing the point. Sometimes that happens too. Okay, but yeah, the goal isn't just to hit as much as you can. Okay. Next one, what's your favorite Shinai / Shinai config? I don't know what you mean by Shinai config, but the Shinais that I use the KendoStar all-purpose Shinai for most things. Certainly for like Kihon practice, Kakarigeiko, not so much Kakarigeiko these days, I don't do that so much. Kakarigeiko, by the way, I've noticed I've said it a few times, and I know it's been highlighted this. Kakarigeiko is attacking practice where you do as many attacks as you possibly can in a short space of time. It's very, very intense, very, very tough, but it's very good for you. But sort of, anyway, back to the subject of the Shinai. I use the all-purpose Shinai for kirikaishi, uchikomi, again, striking practice, that sort of thing. And for like Keiko, or like Jigeiko, or Shiai, sometimes I like to use a Shinai that we have called Junki. I like that. And I've been using the Hachiman Shinai as well a lot recently, the octagonal grip. Large grip Shinai. They're really, really awesome, actually. Really nice balance. I'm not a massive fan of large grip Shinais personally, because I don't have massive hands, but I do like those. They're really, really nice. They fit really comfortably in the hand. And I don't really use oval grip Shinai much either, but those particular ones, super nice. So yeah, those are my three sort of main ones I'm rotating, I guess. Right, next one. The AJKF, that's the All Japan Kendo Federation, administers Kendo, Iaido, and Jodo. What's the relation of all three to each other, and would it be beneficial for a Kendoka to do Iaido and or Jodo? Right, so one thing I would say on that is I think the All Japan Kendo Federation regulates Kendo, Iaido, and Jodo, particularly Iaido and Jodo, because they are in Japan, they are very, very small niche arts compared to Kendo. And I think that they are kind of under the umbrella of the All Japan Federation because they're not quite big enough to have the structure that an organization like the All Japan Federation can provide. So I don't know that much about it, if I'm honest, though. But I know for a fact, though, that the population of people doing those arts is very, very small compared to the number of people doing Kendo. I don't, and of course, yeah, I'm sure they do have sort of similar goals, probably. I don't know that much about Iaido and Jodo, if I'm honest, because I don't do either of them. And in terms of the relation of all three and whether it's beneficial for a Kendoka to do Iaido and Jodo, I've never really. I don't. Am I going to upset people if I say that I don't think there's a massive benefit to Kendo by doing Iaido or Jodo? In fact, I actually think, for the most part, the students I've had that do Iaido, I tend to find that their practice of Iaido gets in the way of trying to get them to understand Kendo. I'm not saying that like it's bad or something like that, and there's plenty of senseis that do both. But I think those senseis are quite good at separating the bits that need to be separate, and interlinking the bits that can be interlinked. But there are some aspects of Iaido, for example, that are not compatible with Kendo, and are just completely different. I don't think you need to do Iaido or Jodo to effectively or properly practice Kendo. I'm not saying that you shouldn't know either, okay? Right. Next one. Hi, Andy. What's the difference between Kansai and Kanto mensuke? Is Kansai style better, more secure than Kanto? So what we're talking about here is how the himo are attached to the men, how the strings are attached to the men. The most common type is where you use two chichikawa, the leather loops, to attach it to the bottom of the men here on the fourth bar from the bottom. Two attach two strings here, and the strings go around the back here, through the top bar, back around on both sides, and then it ties at the back. That's the most common style, and that's what here has been referred to as Kanto style. Kanto is the eastern region of Japan, by the way. Kansai is the western region, and the Kansai style often refers to another type of attaching the himo to the men and how to tie it, with using one longer leather strip and often longer strings as well, and it wraps around kind of twice before it ties up. Now, I've never heard the words Kanto and Kansai style used in Japan to describe these methods. Now, in Kansai, when I lived in Kansai, that's a sort of, they call it Western Japan, but it's sort of like central Japan, really. It's like Osaka and Kyoto area. When I lived in that area, many people did attach it from the top, and they call it attaching it from the top. Nobody there was calling it the Kansai style. In fact, a lot of the people there, when I said to them that, like, oh, I've only ever seen this, this seems to be more common, in Kansai, a lot of people were surprised by that. And then attaching it from the bottom seems to be more popular everywhere else. I'm not gonna speculate necessarily the reasons. I have heard that it's potentially because in the old days you used to win a match if you could get an opponent's men off. So the idea of wrapping the himo around twice was a way to secure it on, so that couldn't happen. That may be the origins of the method of attaching it to the top. I don't know for certain. I use the bottom style because I personally find it more comfortable. I wouldn't say that one is better than the other. They're just different styles. Some people prefer the other style because it kind of fits on your head a bit more. Personally, I like what I call the standard style, but the method of attaching to the bottom. I find it more comfortable, and that's it. Okay, next one. Why are old Kendo teachers grumpy? Will you be grumpy too? So clearly you've not been to one of my Kendo classes because, yeah, I already am grumpy. Right, next one. How do you join a dojo in Japan? In the US, you can usually find a contact information via the internet. That doesn't seem like the case for most dojo in Japan. What's the best way to find a good dojo in Japan? Most dojos in Japan do actually have their contact details on the internet. I think most of the dojos that I've joined in Japan, I think I did find them on the internet, actually. You have to be able to speak Japanese. You have to understand Japanese so that you can find out the information. It's not written there in English, of course, because it's Japan. So, yeah, you need to be able to understand Japanese. If you can understand Japanese, it's pretty easy to join a dojo. You would need to, again, it could be hard to find a dojo that will take you on if you're like a complete beginner, though. If you're like, if you're like Shodan or above, and you've got your own kit, then I don't think it should be a problem for you to join the dojo. Next one. What do the 7 folds on the gi and Hakama mean? Okay, so there's no folds on the gi, but on the Hakama, the 5 pleats at the front, they're sort of in relation to the 5 Confucian virtues. It's called, I've printed it off here. Let's see if I can read it. It says, Jingide Chishin. Jingide Chishin. Okay, so Jing is benevolence, Gi is justice, Dei is what we have in Kendo, right? Dei, manners, courtesy, Chi is wisdom or knowledge, and Shin is sincerity. Okay, so that's what they sort of mean. It's very, very deep, but yeah, that's what it comes from. It's from Confucianism. Okay, not Confucianism. Right. Next, other than Shimpan seminars, are there any resources you recommend for preparing to begin serving as a Shimpan? Yeah, Mitori Geiko. Do loads of Mitori Geiko, loads and loads of it, and practice Kendo lots as well. It's very difficult to judge waza that you have no understanding of how to perform yourself. So you need to be technically adept to do Shimpan very well. But you also need to practice. You must do Shimpan. I think one of the problems we have like outside of Japan is we often start Shimpan far too late. I often see people I see people that are like 4th dan and they don't know how to Shimpan. It's like, how? Like the Japanese kids, by the time they're junior high school students, they're having to referee Shiai for each other. And yeah, they might not be perfect at saying the right commands or the angle that they hold the flag, or making the perfect triangle as they move around, but they know the really important thing, which is how to recognize ippon, how to recognize yuko datotsu or valid points. Okay, so yeah, refereeing Shimpan, that is something that you need to do as early as, I wouldn't say as early as you can. You can't do it on day 1, but like certainly from Shodan, you need to start trying to get some sort of experience of Shimpan. And when you're watching Kendo, where you're doing your Mitori Geiko, Mitori Geiko, by the way, means when you're watching and learning. Okay, it's learning from watching. Watch what the points, try to figure out the difference between the points that are awarded and the points that weren't. It's one thing that I did. I was very lucky. After I started Kendo, not long after it, there was the World Championships in the UK, and I went along. I had a video camera. It was before YouTube was a thing, and I videoed as much of it as I could. I videoed as much of the matches as I could. I came home, I put it onto a VHS tape, put it, and I watched that tape over and over again. And one thing I actually did, sounds kind of dumb, but I literally stood in front of the TV with that tape running, and I watched the Shiai and tried to imagine myself as the Shimpan. Okay, I was like IQ at this stage, all right? But I tried to imagine myself as the Shimpan, and I tried to, when I saw a point, I tried to signal it, even just on my own in my living room, but just to see if I could recognize it. And of course, I got it wrong loads. But then when I saw one that I signaled and they didn't, I tried to figure out what the difference was between that one and the one that they did and stuff like that, So self-study. There's loads of resources for it, actually. Next one. What do you think about the philosophical / mental aspects of Kendo? What a question. I think it's super important, and it's something that requires a lot of study. It takes years and years and years, and it's not something I can really just go into in a video like this. But yeah, I mean, that's a whole essay subject in itself. But the philosophical and mental aspects of Kendo are of extreme importance and are the core values of Kendo and why it exists. Next, what are some good ways to practice or train Tenoichi outside of the dojo? Suburi and more suburi, okay? Just suburi. Watch the video that I've got called practicing suburi at home or something like that. If you type that in YouTube, I'm sure it'll come up. I've got a video about how to practice suburi on your own. Follow those and you'll improve your Tenoichi. Last one. Okay, this isn't really a question. Okay, this says what is seme, and then there's like a winky face with the tongue out. It says less of a question but more of a comment. When you use Japanese words, could you at least the first time give the English translation as well? I don't think I'm alone when I say that it can be a bit confusing at times, especially if you've forgotten exactly what something means. Yeah, this is feedback, actually. In terms of what is seme, I commented on this. I've got a video about what is seme and explaining what it is. All right, it's when you make your opponent think they're going to get hit. About the Japanese words, yeah, I mean, this is something I've had a bit of feedback on about, actually, and yes, I definitely will do my best to make more of an effort to explain the Japanese terminology that I'm using. I'm not doing it on purpose. Sometimes I don't actually realize that I'm saying a word that might not be necessarily understood universally, because I did Kendo. I've done more Kendo. I did Kendo in Japan longer than I did it outside of Japan. So it's a bit difficult for me sometimes to separate that, oh, that's not a common word. So I am sorry about that. If I ever do say something and I don't explain it, pop a comment down below and say, what does that mean? And I'll make sure to address it in the next one. All right. At the same time, though, I will indeed do my best to explain the words that I've used, just to go over the words that I might have used in this video already. I think we talked about Kakarigeiko. Kakarigeiko is attacking practice where you do a series of consecutive attacks in a short space of time, hopefully all in one breath. What else did we talk about? We talked about Keiko. The word Keiko means practice, by the way. Somebody asked about Shiai and Jigeiko. Shiai being competition, Jigeiko being free sparring or free practice. And I think that's pretty much everything that I sort of mentioned that needs to be this time. But yeah, in the future, if I do say something and it is a bit of an obscure term that isn't as commonly known, pop a comment down below and I'll make sure I address it next time. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. Join the Kendo Show Early Access group. There's a link down there. And shop at KendoStar. Yeah. Get to KendoStar.com. Thanks a lot. See you all next time. Bye-bye.